NBA LeBron James Kobe Bryant photo by Harry Howe, Getty Images. One of the best part of being a sports fan is the ability to look back on the history of your sport, and start asking questions about what could have happened differently. Even though we may never have an answer to these questions, they will persistently plague us, probably until there's no more NBA to ask questions about. Here are a few of the biggest what-if questions about the association over the last couple of decades. What if Kobe and LeBron had faced off in the NBA Finals? This is probably one of the biggest what-if questions NBA fans ask. And when you think about the caliber that these two players played at during certain seasons, it's easy to understand why. There is, admittedly, a fairly small amount of time where these two meeting would have been interesting. This time would probably span from the 07-08 season through the 12-13. What makes this all the more interesting is that during that span of time, either a Kobe team or a LeBron team was one in the NBA Finals. 08-10 was the Lakers, 11-13 was the Heat. Another interesting aspect of this is the teams that were the reason Kobe and LeBron never met. In 2008, Cleveland lost to future champion Boston Celtics. In 2009 they lost to the Magic, who went on to lose to the Lakers in the finals. In 2010 Cleveland lost to Boston again, though this time the Lakers would beat the Celtics for the championship. In 2011 the Lakers lost to the future champions Dallas Mavericks. In 2012 the Lakers lost to the Oklahoma City Thunder, who would later lose to the Heat, and in 2013 the Lakers lost to the Spurs, who went on to face the Heat in the finals. That means, in every year, either the Lakers or the Cavs lost to a team that went to the finals, and in 2 of those 6 years they lost to the team that won the finals. A comparison of their stats makes this matchup even more exciting. In those 6 years, Kobe averaged 26 points a game on 45% shooting with almost 5 assists per game. LeBron averaged 27 points on 51% shooting with 7 assists per game. Keeping in mind the quality of their respective teams at this time, and you can just see how a matchup between these two would have been one of the more memorable ones in NBA history. Even if LeBron hadn't guarded Kobe, he probably wouldn't have. It still leaves a lot of special moments on the table. Page 2 NBA Michael Jordan mandatory credit, Jonathan Daniel, All Sport. Another question that NBA fans will probably be asking until the end of time, and this one ties into the GOAT debate. Jordan famously achieved 2 three-peats with his Chicago Bulls, and in between he went off to play baseball. With that, the question of what he could have achieved had he stayed in the league has hung around, practically with his retirement. The answer to these questions differ from person to person, but the general consensus is that Jordan would have ended his career with more than just 6 championship rings. Now, whether or not he would have won both championships during his first retirement is up to speculation, but that's the fun in questions like these, right? Jordan missed the entire 93-94 season, and the majority of the 94-95 season. These missed games meant that the Bulls were not able to win 8 in a row. In both seasons the Houston Rockets were national champions, beating the Knicks and the Magic respectively. Judging by his performance in the 92-93 season, and what little he played of the 94-95 season, it's fair to assume that Jordan would have averaged around 30 points a game on 45% shooting. With that, his ability, and level of fame, we can also guess that the crop of players who left probably would have stayed on for these seasons, meaning the Bulls would be playing with the same crew they always had. Whether or not the Bulls would have been able to knock off the Rockets is a whole different question in and of itself, but one thing is for sure, if the Bulls had won 8 straight championships, it would make the GOAT argument that much harder to debate. Page 3 What if the Thunder had stayed together? Another one of those big what-ifs that will probably never fade. Many people wonder to this day what the Thunder would look like had their 2011-12 roster stayed intact. For those who don't remember, that season's Thunder had, among others, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Kevin Durant, Serge Ibaka, Nick Collison, Derek Fisher, and Kendrick Perkins. That off-season, the Thunder would trade James Harden, and that season they would beat the Rockets in the playoffs. Then, with the signing of Steven Adams and Enes Kanter, things were certainly looking up for this Thunder squad. Well, you all know what happens next. They lose to the Spurs in the playoffs, then they lose to the Warriors a few years later, Kevin Durant leaves, James Harden becomes an MVP-caliber player, and the Thunder struggle to find any foothold in the Western Conference. It seems that stage of their franchise has left, considering that the Thunder are sitting at third in a tough Western Conference as of writing this, but still the question of what could have been rests over everyone's head. To start off with, the Thunder almost certainly would have had to let one of the big three go soon after the 2012 season had they not traded Harden. The talent that those three had would have meant that they all demanded enough money that it would be impossible for all three to stick together unless someone took a pay cut, an option which none of those stars seemed keen on taking. Also, let's not pretend like we didn't know Harden was going to be a star. He was a Sixth Man of the Year award winner, and even at the time, many questioned the decision-making of Sam Presti with letting Harden go. Interestingly enough, if these three had stayed together and the Thunder needed to get rid of one of them, it probably would have been Westbrook. He seemed to have caused the most trouble on that team and also is probably the least talented among the three players. Some key signings, such as Paul George, wouldn't have happened either. However, it's not totally out of the realm of possibility that the Thunder still would have picked up some key role players like Adams, Schroeder, and Kanter. Regardless, the Thunder seem to have rebounded fairly well from this trade, but there is no doubting that letting Harden go was the start of a few years of problems with the Thunder. Next, the Yo What If question, page 4. NBA Houston Rockets Yao Ming, photo by Jeff Gross, Getty Images. Possibly one of the greatest big men who would never reach his prime, Yao Ming is a name that still makes Rockets fans tear up slightly whenever it's mentioned. The Chinese big man could have ushered in a new Ming dynasty in Houston, if only he hadn't succumbed to so many injuries. Ming would only end up playing in just 486 games over his 8 seasons, which averages out to 60 games a season. He would only play 2 full seasons, from 2002 to 2004, and in his last season, 2010-11, he would only play in 5 games. Despite his short career, Ming was able to play at such a high level that he was voted into the Hall of Fame on September 9, 2016 along with stars such as Shaquille O'Neal and Allen Iverson. Ming averaged 19 points, 9 rebounds, and almost 2 blocks with 52% shooting from the field and 83% free throw shooting. If Ming had been able to keep playing, we would have seen him be a part of some huge Rockets moments, assuming he stayed in Houston, including being able to team with James Harden and possibly even Clint Capella. With being drafted in 2002, we'd probably just now be looking at the end of a great run for Yao Ming, which almost certainly would have seen him cement his legacy as a Hall of Fame big. Still, it is nice knowing that he at least got the recognition he deserved, even if he had one of the shortest NBA careers in the Hall of Fame. Next, the What If Lakers question, page 5. NBA Dwight Howard Kobe Bryant, photo by Jared Wickerham, Getty Images. One of the greatest Lakers teams that never was, the 2012-13 Lakers proved to be a big disappointment for fans, as well as being the team that marked the end of each member of their Big Three's career. The 2012-13 Lakers boasted a lineup that had one of the scariest core fours on paper, with Kobe Bryant, Pau Gasol, Steve Nash, and Dwight Howard all suiting up in the purple and gold that season. The Lakers also had a few key role players such as Metta World Peace, Robert Sacra, and Steve Blake. If this team had been able to pull something together, they would have been one of the deadliest teams in the league. Then, it almost instantly fell apart. Howard and Gasol would go on to have their worst seasons statistically at that point, and Kobe would be in the midst of one of his worst seasons statistically. Plus, Nash and Gasol needed to sit a lot of the season out with injuries. Gasol would be able to bounce back from this season, but for Kobe, Nash, and Howard, it really signaled the end of their careers. Nash would bow out the following year and Kobe would leave just a few years later, leaving Howard the only remaining member of that Big Three. Since the 2015-16 season, Howard has not spent more than one season with a team, being moved 4 times since the 12-13 season. If it had all worked out, the Lakers could have been just the 8th team in NBA history to have 4 All-Star players, an accolade that would go to the 2014-15 Hawks instead. Not to mention, that would have been the prime year to see a Kobe v. LeBron matchup in the finals. See, we're bringing it full circle here. Page 6. The Miami Heat may not make the playoffs this season, and even if they get there will likely have a quick exit, but Dwayne Wade may have just had his moment as his farewell season begins to come to an end. For much of the season, it's been a pretty quiet final campaign for Wade and the Heat. Overall, the team has underperformed for much of the year, and Wade, while he has been better than expected in his 16th season in the NBA, he made an appearance at the All-Star game and had a nice on-the-court reunion with LeBron James. Chris Bosh, who played a big part in Wade's career, will get his jersey retired in the coming weeks, so that will be memorable too. However, Wade hadn't had a pop moment until Wednesday night, against the Golden State Warriors, arguably the greatest talent ever assembled on a single team. Wade has his moment. Down by 2 points, Wade stepped up as he's done time and time again for the Heat throughout his illustrious career. And in classic Wade fashion, the game winner wasn't the cleanest or the prettiest, but it a shot that only he would make, off balance, and banked in. If you've followed Wade throughout his career, this was right on brand. The pictures perhaps explain just how big of a moment this was not only to this team, that has really struggled over the last few weeks collectively, but for Wade too. This may not cure all for the Heat and their recent struggles, but at least Heat fans can walk away from this season knowing that they had one really fun night, the one where Wade turned back the clock and gave fans one more feel of his magic. Fans hoped that they would get one more Dwayne Wade moment in the playoffs, possibly winning them a game or two. However, this might have been all they get as the team continues to struggle in the East. It'll work, though. It was classic Wade, classic Heat, and the perfect moment.